Hare Krishna. Hare Namaniswaram Satya
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gopanga. The supreme controller who possesses an eternal form of crystal knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gopula, whose full embodied of the devotees kept raptors into the storerooms, and who then quickly jumped and ran at the retreat. The fear of Mother Yashoda, but was ultimately caught. That supreme Lord Sri Bhagavatam offered the basis. On seeing his mother's weakness, he cried and left his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful, his breathing quick. As Mother Yashoda bound his belly in the roots, he shivered and frightened his throat and was to this supreme Lord, Sri Bhagavatam, who is bound with his devotees' love, I offer his business. So the super excellent grounding in the absence of excess. The devotees were attracted only to this majestic aspect of the Lord here begins. I am conquered and overwhelmed by fear, love, and devotion. To the Supreme Lord, Sri Bhagavatam, now obeisances hundreds and hundreds. O Lord, although you were able to give all kinds of conditions, I did not pray to you for liberation, nor for eternal life and directly death, nor for any other doom. I only pray that you shall have passed and constantly pray in mind. O Lord, I have only wants in your future. I simply wish that you shall have passed and will be pardoned. Oh Lord, my Lord, you have born on the day. Then the sons of Kuvera, Mon-Fri, and Nalapuva, who were first to stand as priests, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in this same way. I have no desire for liberation of your opponents. Oh Lord, the entire universe was created by who was born from you, which was bound by a rope, which was bound by a rope and under your to this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimad, and to your unlimited happiness.
Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabiyari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuing reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, questions by King Parikshit, text number 15. Bhupatala kakubhyoma graha nakshatra bhuvritam sarit samudra dvipanam sambhavaschaitar okasam Bhupatala kakubhyoma graha nakshatra bhuvritam sarit samudra dvipanam sambhavaschaitar okasam Bhupatala kakubhyoma graha nakshatra bhuvritam sarit samudra dvipanam sambhavaschaitar okasam.
Upatala kubhyoma Grahanakshatra Ubhatam Sitsamudra Dvipanam Samavaschaitaro
Upatalaka kubhyoma Grahanakshatara bhubritam Sarit samudra dvipanam Sambhavaschaita tokasam
Bhupatala kakubhyoma graha nakshatra bhuvritam sarit samudra dvipanam sambhavaschaitar okasam.
Upatala kakubhyoma Graha nakshatra bhubratam Sarit samudra dvipanam Sambhavaschaitar okasam.
Upadala Karbhagvoyam
Bhupatala kakubhyoma
Graha Nakshat Purupratam
graha nakshatra bhuvritam
Sarit Samudra Drivipanam
sarit samudra dvipanam
Sambhavas Chaitad Okrasham.
sambhavaschaitar okasam. Word for word translation. Upatala, underneath the land. Kakup, the four sides of the heavens. Vyoma, the sky. Graha, the planets. Nakshatra, the stars. Bhuvritam, of the hills. Sarit, the river. Samudra, the sea. Dvipanam, of the islands. Sambhava, appearance. Cha, also. Etat, there. Okasam, of the inhabitants. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the Prabhupada Ki Jai. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants, take place. Purport. The inhabitants of different varieties of land, etc., are differently situated, and not all of them are equal in all respects. The inhabitants of the land are different from the inhabitants of the water or the sky, and similarly, the inhabitants of the different planets and stars in the sky are also different from one another. By the laws of the Lord, no place is vacant, but the creatures of one particular place are different from those of other places. Even in human society, the inhabitants of the jungles or the deserts are different from those of the cities and villages. They are so made according to different qualities of the mode of nature. Such adjustment by the laws of nature is not blind. There is a great plan behind the arrangement. Maharaj Parikshit requests the great sage Shukadev Goswami to explain all these authoritatively, in accordance with proper understanding. Translation again. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants, take place. Maharaj, would you please like to make a comment for us?
This indicates that the Vedic culture was quite advanced. It was written 5,000 years ago. And already these things were well studied, astronomy and cosmology. And we see, as Maharaj Parikshit is asking, so the Prabhupada is also carrying out that request. He wants that we design and construct a planetarium that will depict these things as requested in these verses. And it will be very beneficial for the world because, as was mentioned recently, if we don't understand how the universe is set up in the proper way, then by default, we'll misunderstand and think that it's happening by accident, or there's no one in control. That's what's happened now. Even the scientists say that the whole universe comes from void, nothing. And it's all simply accidental. Explosions, no persons involved, there's no such thing, life on higher planets. So, what's wrong with that? The thing that's wrong with that is because God is removed from the whole picture. How can we remove God from the universe, from everything? That's the most absurd proposition, but that's what happens because they have lost this knowledge. And I was speaking with one professor when I was about to go to India for some cosmology project. I contacted one professor in America. He was from India, but he was quite well known in America and India. So I asked him, told him what we were doing, working on a planetarium design to display all these things. And he said, I don't really know much about that field. His field was some different field. He said, well, I'll say this. ISKCON is doing the most work to sustain and maintain the Vedic culture. Otherwise, every day it's being lost. And it's true. When we went there, we saw that even things, even books and literatures and writings that had been available not very long ago were out of print. You couldn't find them in the libraries. That means the culture is just going, it's being lost. It's all being lost. And when it's lost, then the human society goes down to the level of animals. Because animals don't have this type of information. They don't have this type of science or interest. Animals are not interested in these things. But humans are interested. And if they're given proper knowledge, how there's a great system. The whole system of how the universe is working with its design, and the sun is acting like the hand on the clock and going around through the different 12 rashis, keeping the time. It's called the time maker also. So, but when they think that the sun is still and doesn't move and has no rotation, then they miss the whole point of the universe. And they can't understand astrology because they think it's silly that there could be life on other planets. There could be some design that certain parts of the universe are controlled by other beings, higher beings. But we see that's the case even here on our earth, that when there are higher beings who are controlling a particular land or water or sky, they keep watch on it, make sure no one intrudes, no one goes there that's not allowed to go there, and they use it for their own purposes. But why, if that's going on here, all the seas, you take a boat, a ship, and you start sailing in a particular area, you think no one owns it, but someone will claim it. And they'll tell you you have to get a permit to go through those waters. Similarly, in the universe, it's like that. Everything is owned. Everything is under the control. Krishna is the supreme owner of everything. And he has his demigods, his assistants. And they're entrusted to supervise the universe, make sure it goes on properly. And the sun, we sing that song from Brahma Samhita, Yach Chakshuresha Savita Sakala Gahanam Raja Samastam Murtir Shesha Teja Yasyagyaya Brahmati Samrita Kala Chakro Govindamari Purusham Tamam. Kala Chakra means he's mounting his wheel of time, and he's always moving because he's been given orders. Yagyaya. Who gave him the orders? Krishna gave him the order. Govinda gave the orders. And the sun, he has no freedom. He can't just decide, well, today I'll make my orbit and today I won't. He has to make it every day. He never misses. Well, there's some plan here. Otherwise, you say, how long is the universe, how long has the sun been here? They don't know. How long will it be here? They don't know. But the Vedic literature tells us exactly to the day when the sun came, when the sun will be dismantled, when the universe will be dismantled, whole thing closes up. This is not known to common people, but the Vedic literature gives us knowledge. So Prabhupada wanted this study to be done and executed so that the world would understand what valuable asset the Vedic knowledge has, how important it is for the higher values of life. If we think God is non-existent, then how can our life be valuable? We miss the whole point. We're all here to serve God. We all are servants of God, and then we take God out of the picture. Can't be taught in the schools. Can't be taught in the religions. What do we got? We have a lower animal society. So it's important to study this. Not just, it's important because from a metaphysical point of view, from the transcendental point of view, and also how it's working. Then we can understand how the whole universe is going on under direction, higher authorities, and why it is that if one does something at a particular time, the influence of these planets and these stars and these demigods will take effect, and you can predict what will happen when the eclipses will happen and phases of the moon, all these things.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. So, do you have any questions? Yes, Mataji has a question. Is there a microphone?
So the planets have bodies in the solar system, such as Mars and Venus, they're considered higher bodies compared to Earth.
Some of the planets are higher, yes. So the moon is one of the heavenly planets, Chandraloka, and there are other planets that are like one planet, Rahu. That's a hidden planet, dark planet. That's a lower planet. And then we're living on Bhumandala, as described here. So first is here Bhupatala. So that means the Earth and all the 7 layers below. There are 7 planetary systems. They're called lower planetary systems. That's underground. And they're the living beings who live in the earth. And then there's living entities who live on the earth, as we do, on top. And then there's those who live in the sky, in the air. They have rotating planets. And then there are the islands Dvipa. There are 7 great islands in a circular format. Prabhupada wanted all this to be depicted in the planetarium. So that's coming up soon. It's supposed to be, I think, opening in a year or so. So yeah, some of the planets are middle planets, some of them are higher.
Hare Krishna. Recently, we heard that higher planetary systems, you have to be in the mode of goodness to be qualified to enter those planets. And we see here, at least with the modes of ignorance and passion, we suffer so much from these reactions. Is it that they don't have suffering there in the higher planets? And is that what makes it so difficult for them to go back to Krishna's abode?
Yes, more or less, in a relative perspective, there's no suffering there. It's all pleasure and enjoyment. So it makes it seem like, oh, life is all good. It's great. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that, one becomes conditioned by the mode of goodness. He thinks everything is great. He becomes happy. But from a perspective of totality, there's misery everywhere, because even, these personalities, which we could look at Lord Indra, who's the chief of these demigods of these heavenly planets, he's an anxiety about losing his prestige, his position, his opulence. So there's always some kind of fear or anxiety or distress in the material world. It's kind of the dual end of happiness and pleasure, enjoyment. So you take things materially enjoying, then naturally there's a reaction of suffering, some shape or form. So, yeah.
I have a question not related to this. The other day you were speaking about japa, and you were saying that we could learn to serve the holy name. Can you elaborate on that? Like, how do we serve the holy name?
I was talking about not learning to serve the holy name, but begging to the holy name, Nam Prabhu, and everything in a spiritual dimension is personified. So the holy name is actually, a living, breathing person, although we might not be able to perceive that. So when we chant, we should chant with a mood, begging Nam Prabhu, begging the holy name that we can be engaged as a servant of the holy name. What does it look like to be a servant of the holy name? We can look at Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was carrying Lord Chaitanya's mission of spreading the holy name to every town and village. Some people thought this was just in the land of Bharatvarsh, Vindhya. Prabhupada could see beyond that, because he was following the vision of his spiritual master, of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We should realize that chanting of the Maha Mantras, our life and soul, what sustains us in the material, in general. Everything else is just a phallus. So I could talk more about that. I'd love to talk more about japa and chanting, but I wanted to talk about Srila Narottama Das Thakur, it being his disappearance day. Some devotees were here a few weeks ago. I did a whole Sunday class on Narottama Das Thakur, which was like 45 minutes. Now we have like 10 minutes, so there's so much that could be said. But it's his disappearance day, so it makes me think of you could go to Vrindavan and you could go to the Radha Golokananda temple. And there in the courtyard sits the samadhi of Lokanath Goswami, the spiritual master of Narottama Das Thakur. Narottama Das Thakur he was born in Kaituri on the other side of India, which is like 900 something miles away. Born in a royal, rich, opulent family, actually of the Kayasta class, which is kind of like a kshatriya, but they're under the rule of the Muslims. So, they're not actually viewed in the context of a pure kshatriya in the Vedic scheme. So they're very rich, very opulent. And Narottama Das Thakur, he had a dream, more so of a vision experience. Lord Nityananda came to him in his dream and told him that, he should leave for Vrindavan. And what really sparked this to happen was that when Narottama Das Thakur was born, the astrologers did his charts, his reports, and the astrologer mentioned that you should never let this boy go by, big body of water. He'll have a great, nice life, but don't let him go by this water. It could be dangerous. So in this dream, Lord Nityananda, he instructed Narottama Das Thakur to go out in the middle of the night and go to this river that runs right next to their house. I believe the name's Godavari, something like that. And when he went to this river, there was a surprise. He went to the river, he went into the water swelled up, and actually the river personified came out of the water, and she says that I have this for you. I've been given this to you to give to you. She was given a stash of prema by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya was touring through that area doing Sankirtan with his devotees, and they were on this very river. And he looked over to the village where Kaituri was seated, and he started calling out, Narottama, Narottama. All the devotees were like, what? What's he talking about? He's like, there's no Narottama here. There's nobody with that name. But he kept chanting it. And, long story short, he stored his prema, his love of Krishna, in the waters with this river. And the river asked, how will I know which person to give it to? There's so many people that come take bath in my rivers every single day. And he said, when the person enters into your river and it swells like it did when I came in, then that person you deposit this prema to. So Narottama Das Thakur, following the instruction of Lord Nityananda, he went to this river, he received this prema, he became madly intoxicated with love of God. Lord Chaitanya actually entered his heart, entered his being. Said that he was born, he had very dark skin. And after this, all the villagers came at sunrise to the river, and they saw this boy, like a young teenager, like 12 or something. And he's in ecstasy, exhibiting all the different states of ecstatic trance. He's like rolling on the ground, he's crying, he's wailing, he's, horripulating, all these different things. And everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. They're very disturbed. And Narottama Das Thakur, his parents, they come and they see him, but at first they don't even recognize him because his dark skin turned to golden colored skin. We can look up the picture here. He has golden colored skin resembling that of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after this time, he became infatuated, just completely awestruck with Vrindavan, of running away and becoming a sadhu. But his parents obviously didn't want him to do that. He's a prince, they expect him to take up the kingdom. And they decide, let's get him married. That will keep him here, that will tie him down. But Narottama Das Thakur, and he followed his heart, and when he had the opportunity, he ran away from Kaituri to Vrindavan, which I looked it up. From Kolkata to Vrindavan to Delhi. Kolkata to Delhi is about 1,500 kilometers, which is like over 900 miles. So, you can imagine he traversed nearly 900 miles on his own through forests, through jungles. He is born as a prince in a kingdom, so very soft feet. He doesn't know how to take care of himself hardly. There's always servants around, and here he is, he's running all the way. And he was suspecting that his parents would send people after him to follow him. So he's running and he's running and he's running, and he almost gave up, and he became so tired, he collapsed and fell. And then at that time, a villager came and brought him this pot of milk and set it, at him, offering it to him. But he was so tired, he couldn't even drink it. He just crashed. And when he crashed like this in his dream, less of a dream and more so experience, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami came to him and they said, Narottama, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought this milk for you, especially for you himself. Drink this milk, you'll become nourished, you'll become strong, and you'll be able to continue your journey to Vrindavan. So he drank this pot of nectarian milk that the Lord brought to him. He became strong. He made it to Vrindavan. He's so excited. He's so running so fast. But upon entering Vrindavan, it said that, his whole mood changed. He got to Mathura and his mood seriously changed from that of excitement to that of, being nervous, anxiety. Much like, imagine you have a very big guest coming here. And imagine Radhanath Swami or some other Jayapataka Maharaj comes. There's all this anticipation and preparation and building, and we have to do all these things to prepare. And then finally the person, comes and gets out the car and walks in, then, it's all like, there's a whole different mood. It changes from, anticipation and excitement to, much more serious, much more grave. So Narottama Das Thakur was realizing, I am in Vrindavan. How will I be allowed in Vrindavan? I shouldn't be here. But then he made it, and he made it to the temple of Radha Govinda. Jiva Goswami took him in and introduced him to everybody. And before he left Kaituri to go to Vrindavan, Lord Nityananda told him that you should go there and take initiation from Lokanath Goswami. But Lokanath Goswami made a famous vow. He made a vow to never have a disciple, never take any disciples. He didn't want to become famous. He didn't want to have this in his devotion in his life. But Narottama Das Thakur, when he saw Lokanath Goswami, his heart melted. He said, this is my Guru Maharaj for sure. And, he was willing to do anything to have him as a spiritual master. And he found out where Lokanath Goswami was doing his daily business, and Narottama Das Thakur, he'd go in the middle of the night every night, and he would clean up the place where he cleansed himself, or he passed stool, these things, and he would clean it very nicely. He would bring the softest sands that he could find and sift it so that this is how they clean things. They use sand and dirt as an abrasive. So he would bring all this so nicely, and after some time, Lokanath Goswami was perplexed, who was doing this. So then he tried to figure out who it was, and he was hiding in the bushes, and then he saw Narottama Das Thakur. And this was one way amongst some other things that Narottama Das Thakur conquered the heart of Lokanath Goswami, you could say, and Lokanath Goswami did in fact give him shelter. He gave him diksha, he gave him initiation. When he gave him initiation, he actually revealed his identity in the spiritual world and his service in the spiritual world, where he was I believe, a gopi that was assistant of another gopi. I don't know the names and details, but his service was to boil milk, prepare milk to make milk sweets for Radha Krishna. And he would become so absorbed in his meditation of doing this service, Manasa Seva. He's doing this seva in his mind. Physically, he's here in the material world, but really he's there in the spiritual world, living, experiencing this. And it said that he would walk around wearing bandages around his arms to hide burn marks, because he didn't want all the devotees to see, these burn marks. But all the devotees in Vrindavan knew that these burn marks were there, and they knew how these burn marks came there through him doing this seva, through his deep meditation and trance to Sri Radha Krishna. So it's 8:30, but there's a few things I just want to mention about this. I'm skipping over a lot of details, but Kartik, this time of year, Jiva Goswami, he invited all the devotees from the greater Vrindavan area for a big festival. And everybody was surprised by this. You know, it was very local, small village. You know, it's kind of a hard ordeal to do this. And when they did that, Jiva Goswami, he announced that he was sending his Siksha disciples, Shamananda, Srinivasacharya, and Narottama Das Thakur on the first Sankirtan mission. They're sending him on traveling Sankirtan to leave Vrindavan and go to Bengal to preach and bring the message of Lord Chaitanya as, further expanded upon by the six Goswamis, their philosophical writing and books there, which is no easy feat. There's no printing press. They had to hand copy these manuscripts. They loaded up on a cart. They took the cart across India, 900 miles. And, on the way, the cart actually got stolen by a king, which was a whole story in itself, which Srinivasacharya actually went and rescued the cart. And he didn't just free the cart, but actually the king and all the king's like close associates became disciples of Srinivasacharya because he went there with such purity. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But then Narottama Das Thakur, he went back to Kaituri. He was preaching in Bengal, and one famous thing that happened was there was a festival of Kaituri, which when he was there, he traveled to Navadvip, and when he went to Navadvip, it seemed like Navadvip was lifeless. Everybody was pale, morose, everybody was sad after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya. It was like a ghost town, or like zombies. And, when he was there, he had an experience, a glimpse of what it was like when Lord Chaitanya was there in the Sankirtan movement. His whole life was spent in separation from Lord Chaitanya, that, he just missed out. He appeared after Lord Chaitanya, so he was always hankering after this association, after this connection of being there, because he could associate with the Lord Chaitanya's associates and devotees and could hear from them and hear stories about him. And now we just go on the internet, or, we hear recordings, but that wasn't the option. That, Krishna had to bless you with somebody to come in your life to tell you about him. So he became super attached, and he was always hankering after this. And after he left Navadvip, he went back to Kaituri, and he decided to start a grand festival to unite all the devotees, all the Vaishnavas in the area, to help invigorate them with, their bhakti. And this was the first Gora Purnima festival. And for this Gora Purnima festival, Lokanath Goswami, he instructed Narottama Das Thakur to install 5 sets of Radha Krishna deities, which they all have different names. There's a song or a poem or shloka that Narottama Das Thakur wrote about this, if somebody wants to know their names. But one of them is in Vrindavan now, which is Radha Vrajamohan. Indradyumna Swami actually took control, or helped with the temple there, donated a lot, and they rebuilt it up. It's really nice. It's really small, but it's really sweet. And also, beyond these 5 sets of deities, one deity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's said that when they were carving and making the deities, Narottama Das Thakur was never pleased with the way that it came out, even though he never saw Lord Chaitanya himself, but he just knew he was never pleased. And then he had this divine dream. Once again, his life was filled with all these divine dreams and experiences and mystical visions and realizations. Lord Chaitanya came to him and said, Narottama, I'm hiding in this grain cellar in a basement, which it was actually an abandoned basement that stored grains, as the biggest grain cellar in Kaituri, but nobody went in there. It was abandoned because it was overrun with snakes. There's a lot of poisonous, deadly snakes there. So it was said that Narottama Das Thakur went there, and he went into this grain cellar, and he pulled out this deity. It was a solid gold deity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was just perfect. And then at this festival, they installed the deities. All the greatest Vaishnavas of the whole Bengal area came, which was headed chiefly by Janava Devi, the wife of Lord Nityananda. She was the most chief, prominent Vaishnava Acharya at the time. And she was given that recognition and honor there at this festival. And during this festival, Narottama Das Thakur, he ushered in a new wave of kirtan, his style, which was very sweet and melodious. And during the kirtan at Keturi, when they were initiating these deities, it said that Lord Chaitanya and his associates actually descended upon the crowd and was there dancing in ecstasy with everybody. Everybody could see them, feel them, experience them. It was a very, very grand moment. You know, some of the devotees were associates of Lord Chaitanya, and they were able to, you know, re-experience that. Other devotees are younger and they never had that and were hankering for it or heard about it, and then they had the experience. So it was a very miraculous time. But to get back to how I first started this, you could go to this samadhi at the temple in Vrindavan. There's Lokanath Goswami samadhi, and next to it is the Dud samadhi of Narottama Das Thakur. So normally there's a samadhi, like if you go to ISKCON Vrindavan, there's a very nice samadhi of Srila Prabhupada, which was a very significant place. This is where he left his body. So they put his body in samadhi and, you know, built a tomb, you know, a samadhi commemorating that. But then they'll take flowers from that samadhi and they'll take it to another place which was significant or that personality had roots or was prominent in, and take that there and build another samadhi, which is the Pushpa samadhi. So Srila Prabhupada is a Pushpa samadhi in Mayapur, which is, anybody hasn't been, I know Rishi's been, it's very, very opulent, very big, very grand, very nice, very, very nice. That's a big understatement. So Narottama Das Thakur, it's not a Pushpa samadhi, but it's a Dud samadhi. Jagannath just learned what this word means. What does this word mean? We're talking about milk, yes. So Narottama Das Thakur, when he left his body, he actually went into the Ganga. And when he went into the Ganga, his body started dissolving into this white, like milky substance. And, you know, his disciples were there and they were kind of bewildered, you know, and sad. They didn't want him to leave, but, you know, they scooped up some of this milky substance and then they took that and made a samadhi. I mean, you know, there's more to the story, but yeah. So Narottama Das Thakur, one other thing was he was famous for taking the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and writing it in simple Bengali language in the form of songs and bhajans. So, you know, we sing a lot of bhajans by Narottama Das Thakur, the Guru Puja, both the songs that we sing almost every day at Guru Puja time are by Narottama Das Thakur. And there's countless others, but, you know, he took the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and put it in a simple form of song so that common people could understand and hear, which was very significant at the time, which, you know, there's brahmanas that are high class people who are philosophically inclined to read Shastra, and then more of common people. So he took that and put it in a way so others can really relish it and connect to it in a very easy way. And, you know, one other thing, last thing I'll say is that there was many disturbances when he went back to Keturi because he was preaching and he stayed a brahmachari his whole life and just dedicated himself towards preaching. And he initiated a lot of disciples, and he was not from a brahmana family. So a lot of people took grievance at this because he was even initiating people who were born brahmanas. And, you know, he would instruct his disciples, and just like in a week's time they would be able to defeat all the philosophy, all the shastra that like their family and all these other naysayers would say. So he was very merciful in bringing up everybody to the highest state. And then when these disciples would even conquer those people, they would go to Narottama Das Thakur to see him, and then they would surrender unto him also. So he was very great. A nickname you could say for him was forget how you say it, Mahashayan. It's like great, very great personality. So I could say many, many, many more things about Narottama Das Thakur, and I skipped over a lot, but for sake of time, I'll end. If anybody has any thoughts or questions or comments, maybe we could have one thing. Yes. I believe that deity still exists. It's at a temple somewhere in the Bengal area. I heard Indradyumna Swami talking about going there. If anybody wants to hear more about Narottama Das Thakur, Indradyumna Swami, he does a series of lectures on all the Vaishnava acharyas. But at Narottama Das Thakur, there's a 3-part series. So there's 3-hour-long lectures, pretty much talking about his early life and journey to Vrindavan, and then leaving Vrindavan on Sankirtan, and then like a whole hour talking about this miracle, this festival at Kaituri, and then the last one's talking about his preaching and how he, like, his activities there in Kaituri and how he left his body. And somewhere there, Indradyumna Swami mentions this, and if anybody's heard from Indradyumna Swami, he has a knack of like gaining all these like really amazing prasad, like these artifacts, and like visiting all these temples, and he makes friends with the pujari there. The pujari will like give him the Shalagram Shila that was like worshipped by some of these great acharyas. He just has this Shakti, he attracts these mercy to him. So I don't know exactly where, but one could refer to that or some other places to find out. So thank you, everybody, for hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Gauranatai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Narottama Das Thakur ki jai. Ancha Kapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhibhi Vachapatitanam Pavanebhi Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.